James Bond dies in No Time to Die.
You're gonna have to cut that because it sounded terrible anyway. Remember, don't touch the table. Get like something beside you and put it there. Because if you touch that table, it's terrible.
It's like that movie, Don't Touch the Table, only in real life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our episode on the Daniel Craig James Bond films.
Daniel Craig was maybe not everyone's first choice, but Casino Royale came out, and it's a fantastic film.
Especially the state of the Bond franchise at that time. He had a lot of heavy lifting to do.
A couple things about this cold opening. For one thing, it's definitely maybe the shortest James Bond cold opening ever. Like, it's a very truncated sequence of like very quick and very sudden and very...
It's the most stylized as well.
Yeah, with the black and white, certainly. It's they find a way to incorporate the iconic James Bond turn towards the screen and shoot at the beginning of every movie, like in reality, and like in the reality of the moment, and for the first time ever, like in the reality of the scene that's playing out, right?
So that's where it came from.
And so Casino Royale, Daniel Craig just kicking this guy's ass, and like it's brutal and it's vicious and it's like handheld almost, like in terms of camera, and like you just feel all this violence, right, for the first time ever in a James Bond film. It's really the Bourne films being so popular that fed into reality-based like action hero, right? And like that was the way to do it, was with this cold opening. So it's a nice twist on the usual formula, and it does it in a very effective manner. It's a mission statement in a way.
This is not going to be Die Another Day, and it is such a relief.
It makes sense why it would have only take 2 years between these two films, because Quantum of Solace is basically just an epilogue to Casino Royale. Like, it's almost like not even its own movie. It's really just like a conclusion to Casino Royale that we didn't really get, and which is interesting because it's the first time that James Bond has ever had a direct continuation of story from one film preceding it. The opening moments of this film are spectacular, and I have a huge issue with the overall editing and pacing of this film, but it works fantastically for the first half hour of the film.
You don't really know it's immediately taking place afterwards until you see him open the trunk and Mr. White's in the trunk.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I kind of figured it was just because of all the setting and stuff, and like
a Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah, like the propulsion in that scene and the propulsion in the editing, because it's literally, I don't think there's a single like shot in this film that lasts longer than 1.5 seconds. Final act of Quantum of Solace. What did you think about
the real hotel, by the way.
Quantum of Solace?
The worst. It's the worst.
Yeah. It's bad. It's really bad. The last thing I'll say about Quantum of Solace, just because I think it deserves a shout out, is I think that sequence in the opera house is fantastic.
It's the best movie.
It honestly might be one of the best sequences in the Daniel Craig era. Like, it's a fantastic sequence. All right, let's move on to Skyfall.
I'd say it's probably Daniel Craig's version of a Sean Connery Bond film.
Yeah, and that you're right in that sense, is that it is the closest to the pure and quintessential Bond that Daniel Craig ever gets. Like, this movie is formulaic Bond in a very good way. Yeah. In a very good way. This is the first James Bond Daniel Craig movie, like formulaic. Like, you get into MI6, you get to see Q, you get to see like M in the Office, you get to see all this stuff. That you get to go to Q Branch and see and to get to see the gadgets. Like, this is the first time we get to do any of this with Daniel Craig. 2 movies in, or 3 movies in.
And you know what I love about it is they've taken the completely opposite direction when it comes to Q, from being like this old man to being this like young kid.
And as we go on and later in the movies, the threat that Bond deals with becomes very much more technological with each step. Like, it becomes like, by the end of the film, the 5th film, nanobots. It's like what he's basically fighting against. They don't do a lot of gadgets, man.
They don't do a lot of gadgets.
No.
I feel like because the world in the Daniel Craig days are just so full of wonders and like crazy technological things, it's like you really can't beat that. Let's talk about Skyfall for a second.
Oh yeah, Skyfall, the song. Yeah. We have to start with the song.
The best.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's the best song.
She is like the Shirley Bassey of theme songs in our age.
So yeah, Skyfall by Adele, fantastic theme song, number 1 with a bullet easily. Moving on to Bond villain, we're talking about Silva, Javier Bardem. Yeah, he's almost got a bit of 006 from GoldenEye in him. Like, there's a little
Yeah.
bit of like you get the sense
Alex
that
Trevelyan.
and
Both of
like
those characters from GoldenEye and in Skyfall come from like a betrayed secret eight double
they got
agent.
betrayed by MI6 and they
Yes.
want revenge. Yes,
Yes.
And that's like an awesome motivation, right? And that's part of why GoldenEye is so effective overall, and
It
it's part
makes
of
it a
why
very worthy adversary as well.
yeah, and why Skyfall, because you can see where they're coming from a little bit, right? Like, they're just made expendable, and you can see Silva as a more than just a one-dimensional bad guy. But I think the ending of Skyfall is effective. It's ultimately a little bit more minuscule than the other.
It's also
third
very
acts,
weird
but
because the notion that it's like the Home Alone of James Bond endings, that doesn't escape anyone watching it. It's like this is like it's kind of weird.
let's talk about Spectre, and let's start with the cold opening, Chris.
All right.
What do we think about the cold opening? The heralded biggest cold opening in James Bond history. And it's too bad everything that happens after that is just not nearly as interesting as that one shot. That at the time they were making Quantum of Solace, they were planning to have Quantum be Spectre. Like, they weren't going to introduce Spectre. They were going to call it something different. It was going to be the same thing as Spectre, but they were just going to call it Quantum, right?
Yeah.
But then by the time they got to making Spectre, obviously, they decided, you know what, let's just go back into the heritage of James Bond. Let's have a little bit of fun with it. Do you think that was the right decision to go back into the heritage, or do you think they should have stuck with like the more new path of like just sticking to Quantum and being like, let's be something different. Let's not dip into Blofeld. Let's not dip into Spectre. Let's
that all of these like James Bond cliches, all these like throwbacks. Basically, what Daniel Craig has done is remade the Sean Connery films. Daniel Craig has really just reproduced the James Bond of the 60s through Spectre.
Yeah, you're right. You could say if there's an arc between Dr. No to Honor Majesty's
because they don't
Service.
do that. They don't do that in the Timothy Dalton films. They don't do that in the Roger Moore films.
Spectre is a fun movie, and as much as I have a few issues with the opening sequence, it's really enjoyable up until the train sequence, and the train sequence is awesome, and then everything after that is just like complete disappointment. The MI6 sequence in Spectre, the saving Madeline from
like
being
the Saw
blown up
game or whatever the hell.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's the worst. Number 4.
It's the worst. Yeah, it's the worst. To me, it screams a rewrite.
Which movie, Sean, has the best cold opening?
Casino Royale.
I'd agree with you.
All right, let's move on to the theme song. What did you find for the theme song?
Number 1, Adele.
Casino one was Adele. I agree. Number 1's Adele. Bond villains. Moving on as quickly as possible.
Bond villains.
All right, Bond villains. Yeah, where would you put the Bond villains?
Le Chiffre is my favorite Bond villain.
Personally, I go Javier Bardem, Skyfall number 1. Casino Royale, I would give a 9.
Yeah, I give it a 10.
Toes.
I give it a 10.
All right.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Quantum of Solace, I would give like a 7. Tarantino Toes.
6.
Skyfall, I would give a 9 as well. I would give 9 Tarantino Toes. And then Spectre, I would give a 7. Tarantino Toes. To find out what we give No Time to Die, you got to stay tuned.
Hey, that's pretty good.